the race is going to win.
Mohamed Patel wins here.
Look at these two go.
He's going to do it. His first victory.
The World Championship is done. What a race it's been.
Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, as Formula Sim Racing returns for 2022. The standings have been wiped clean and the tables reset as our teams and drivers battle ferociously for the illustrious championship title. Casting our minds back just a few months ago, we saw a dominant display by Noah Roivers taking the championship by 53 points. Well deserved after his consistency and pace drove him to 6 wins and 10 podiums over the 12-round season. There's Otzuch and Jan Wozniacka took 1 and 5 wins respectively. Fingers crossed that this season can bring just as much drama and excitement as the last. Into this year, we have 10 rounds and the pleasure of travelling and returning to iconic circuits such as Spa and Silverstone. 2 rounds also to be decided by a community vote, which is something definitely to be looking forward to. To kick off round 1, we are back at Imola, a tight and twisty circuit that never ever fails to provide drama and action. The perfect venue to get the 2022 season underway. With proceedings just moments away, I'm pleased to welcome VCO eSports on board here supporting FSR. And of course, thank you to our returning sponsor of Mesita eSports, bringing everyone watching along what I can guarantee to be a stellar season of racing. I'm Zach Sweeney. I have Richard King alongside me. Richard, pleasure to have you with me in the commentary booth. Certainly cannot wait to get the 2022 season underway.
It's going to be a fantastic season indeed, and qualifying has already got underway in the background with the first laps being placed in.
Yeah, so we're going to cut to that now. Of course, the first couple of laps aren't really the most important in the world. It's more settling in and getting your car, just getting yourself acclimatized to the circuit, getting a crucial banker time in. At the moment, it's Crankvist who leads the way, a 1:15.377. So definitely setting the benchmark high, Richard. And of course, everyone on these soft compound tyres, of course, they don't have the pressure of having to start the race on the tyres they qualified on. So that definitely opens the door for some interesting strategies today.
Definitely, because they can choose whatever tyre they want to start on. They can just push as hard as they want. Obviously, with the DRS along the main straight and the DRS going up towards the back of the circuit as well, you've got a double dose, which is going to allow these drivers to push even harder to get to that top of that timing sheet.
Absolutely, and it's going to be good to see. At the moment, Crankvist is leading the way by a pretty sizable amount over Cosmo Prosciutto, who was a very, very strong contender in the Academy Series last year. He's definitely showing his mettle in the Pro Series as well. At the moment, P2, but again, that's all provisional. These drivers have 3 hot laps in order to set their fastest times possible and set themselves up as best as possible for the, I believe, 50-lap race we have in store for us today. This is Wendt coming through the final couple of corners. Green to the first 2 sectors, unfortunately, hasn't set a time just yet. So this is going to be their benchmark time for the remainder of the session. Across the line, it's a pretty long run down in towards the timing line. And where do they put themselves? At the moment, only 21st, just settling in behind Cameron Roger and off the, or just on the brim of a top 20. This is Cosmo Prosciutto, though, rounding off a lap. Let's see how this sizes up. Oh, this is out lap. He's now starting his lap. So talk us through it, Richard.
So he's coming a bit wide to get that fastest line up towards the start-finish line. He opened DRS just after this curve, going in towards the opening part of the lap. Now you go to the left-hand side, you get nice and close to that apex. Swing it to the right-hand side, heading up towards turn number 2. It is going through nice and fast. You want to keep as much speed as you possibly can on the exit, particularly full throttle on the exit of turn number 4, getting into turn number 5, shifting down to gear 3, getting a nice tight line, pushing it slightly wide onto those outer rumble strips. They can really unsettle your car, but into the hairpin of toe start really nicely indeed, getting a nice strong exit up towards turn number 8. Stick it to the right hand side of the circuit, turn it across, push a little bit wide again onto those rumble strips. Again, they're going to unsettle your car if you push them too hard. One of the hardest parts of the circuit, this into turn number 10. Try not to push it wide. Perfect lap there, and going up towards the chicane of 11 and 12. Getting the inside curbing, push those too hard, and you are really going to have some trouble. But that was a perfect amount of push as we now head down towards turn 14 underneath the bridge, going to the right-hand side of the circuit. Keep it as tight as you can. Push again onto those rumble strips. A bit too far, though, and he is off and into the wall.
That is he got so close to the end of his lap, didn't he? This is Mancini. Purple to the first sector. Unfortunately, couldn't quite improve to the middle sector, but on this run to the line, where can he put himself? At the moment, it's just over 6.5 tenths off pole position, but as he approaches the line, that purple first sector definitely going to help him propel up, and it's third place, matching Cosmo Prosciutto's time to the millisecond. So certainly starting up to be a very, very close race. The top 10 separated by just over 6.5 tenths as we got Lalu now coming through the final couple of corners. An improvement to the middle sector as well. An 18.7, not the worst time through the first sector either. Can they propel themselves up a little bit as well through this kink and then to the line? Where's it going to put them? Have they managed to improve? Not quite, and stays P10 for the moment.
Really strong laps being placed in, and as you said, Mancini going up to P3 there, tying on the second position lap time. Mancini coming up from the AMA series from last year, winning it, so really hitting strong as he enters the Pro Series.
It's always good to sort of prove yourself in the sort of the lower, I say lower tiers, they're not really lower tiers, but you get what I mean, lower down the ladder in the Formula Sim Racing Championship. Being in the AMA series, you're trying to prove yourself to the academy and the pro teams that, hey, I've got some pace in. I could be a sizable, protagonist in the higher up series. Come on, have a look at me. And he's certainly taking this chance with two hands and saying, hey, I know what I can do, as we saw went. Getting it all sorts of wrong through the final couple of corners. This is one of the Netrex cars. At the moment, P14, an improvement to the first sector and an improvement to the second sector too. Looking like a pretty good lap time. But again, it's all about nailing every little bit you can, finding every little bit of time you can, because as Mancini and Prosciutto have showed, every thousandth of a second counts.
Definitely, and this circuit is a really challenging one. You've got so many corners in which you can make a mistake, but a really nice end to the lap there. And let's see if this moves them up the grid at all. Currently in P14 as they come across the line. Is it going to be an improvement? It is a P7 and a really nice improvement at that.
Yeah, definitely a good lap. This is Ivanov at the moment, P4, good enough to have him start on the second row, but we're racing drivers. They're racing drivers. They want more. They always want to extract a little bit more out of the car, and, well, they're, not even 3/100ths of a second off. White to the first sector for those new. That means they haven't improved in that sector. An 18.7, still a decent time. They've still got two sectors in order to try and improve it. But still, you've got to be on it. You've got to nail every corner, as I said a minute ago. Every thousandth of a second counts. But it seems like Crankvist has control, has one hand on this pole position at the moment, because 3.5 tenths in a series this close is a very sizable gap.
And I think you can see that when the gap between second all the way to 12th is the same sort of gap that we can see from first to second. So the gap there is, as you say, one hand on pole position already, but he still wants to improve. He still wants to go even further forward to not get one hand on that pole position, but get both. But it is a little bit slow out of the first sector, and a wobble coming out of turn 7 as he heads to continue the rest of the lap.
Yeah, but look at Mancini, purple to the first sector once again. He needs 3.5 tenths, but at 18.497, that was 3 tenths quicker than Grankvist on his final lap. So what can Mancini do on this final fly? They've got no time left in qualifying. Fletcher manages to get himself into P6. Definitely a good day for him and a good start to the season in terms of qualifying. Now coming up towards the Variante Alta for Mancini. White to the middle sector, hasn't quite improved, but is it still a decent lap? But it's not much in terms of lost time as he pulls over, launched over that social curb, and unfortunately that's his qualifying done. But look at Prosciutto, an 18.6. Denis gets himself into second place, not by much, by just over 2/100ths of a second. It's provisionally the front row, but for how much longer? As Prosciutto, as Coloxai actually into second place. It's nothing between these guys in these dire moments.
As you said, it's all about that second and third flying lap, and right now it's all about the final flying lap. The timer is done. Everyone who is out is on their last lap, and they are pushing hard, and it looks like everyone is almost finished, but that was a really nice lap time put in there by Amphisadis, as we have someone coming into the pit lane here, right field, ending his qualifying. And I think that might be an end, but no, we got Roger still out, it looks like, on the track at the moment.
Well, just a quick rundown of how they shake down after qualifying. It's Jan Krankvist who takes pole position by a pretty dominant amount, considering how close it's been. 1:15.377 for the Super Venturi driver. He's ahead of David Koloksai in the Mugen Sim Racing car, who will join him on the front row. Then comes Danny van der Neet in P3 for Netrex. Cosmo Prosciutto on the second row for the first round here in Pro. Then comes Mirko Mancini P5 with Victor Ivanov in 6th. Kaz Reitveld in P7 for Netrex. Sergio Fletcher P8 with Amphazatsis in P9. Then comes the 21 Netrex Grand Prix car in P10. Very close, not even half a second separate the top 10. So it really is absolutely nothing in it in terms of the pro qualifying. And, you know, you've got to take a step up in this championship. You've got to just be in a different league, take that step above everyone else and prove yourself worthy to the Teams and World Championship and just do as well as you can. Pro definitely is an easy series.
Definitely, and qualifying is just the first step of the event. Obviously, they've now got to convert that into 50 laps of consistent running at the front if they want to convert what are some very good qualifying positions into some very good race results.
Absolutely, it's all about that consistency. It's 50 laps in the race versus 1 lap in qualifying. Well, we're going to go to the pro. Michi Hoy is going to talk us around a lap of Imola. Going to give us a little bit of insight and show us how it's done.
Hello guys, welcome everyone to the Formula Sim Racing season 2022. We are live for the season opener at San Marino, and I'm very proud to take you guys around the San Marino Grand Prix circuit for a flying hot lap. The San Marino circuit, the host of the season opener for the FSR 2022 season DRS, is wide open, and across the start finish line we go. Coming towards the best overtaking spot, turn 2 and 3, basically a chicane. Want to be flat out through 4 and easy on the steering as the car can easily step out into turn 5. Want to stay all the way on the inside here to set yourself up through 6, and then into 7 we go. A very late apex hairpin where you want to be on the throttle as early as possible. The great traction up the hill towards turn 8. 2 downshift to the left, full mount of the curb, don't go too wide over the rattle curb on the outside, coming down towards Aqua Minerali, a little bit of coast to the right, King, then heavy braking into the right hand turn, up the hill, car can be a little bit loose over the crest, and then heavy braking for Variante Alta, the big chicane. Not too hard onto the rattle curb as DRS is enabled again for the back straight down to the final 2 turns. Rivazza 1 and 2 want to hug the inside of that curb a little bit, and very important Rivazza 2. You want to have a great exit onto the start finish straight. Again here DRS wide open, and we're going to be across the line. That is the San Marino circuit, host of race 1 for the FSR 2022. We got a great season ahead, and now I can't wait to see the drivers battling it out for the first win of the season.
Welcome back then, ladies and gentlemen, with the first qualifying session in the books. You join us, myself, Zach Sweeney and Richard King, for a 50-lap race around the Imola circuit here, just 40 kilometers away from San Marino. We had a very close, very decisive qualifying session, and one that could be very important, with Imola being not the easiest circuit to overtake, Richard.
Certainly not. It is a really tricky track to find the good places to overtake, but you are going to get them, especially with the help of the push-to-pass system and DRS. That main straight into turn number 2 is going to be your major overtaking zone, and I think we're going to see it utilised by a lot of drivers today.
Absolutely, and of course more good news for this season. We've been partnered with VCO to bring us the action, particularly for the World Championship, and of course a massive thank you to our returning sponsor of Mesita eSports, who's going to be definitely, it's nice to see that people want to be supporting FSR. It's a great series, one that I've now started my 2nd season on, so you definitely get the pleasure of having me with you, and can't wait to see how this season unfolds alongside you, Richard. At the moment the drivers are in their warm-up. They'll go to the formation up, and then we can get underway underway for 50 laps here at Imola. It's always good to get this season off to a good start, Richard. As you know, as a driver, you want to put one foot forward going off the start of the season through round one, because it can really help or even tarnish your momentum for the rest of the season.
Definitely, the opening round is going to be your best bet at having a good shot throughout the rest of the season. Of course, what happens here is going to set you up for the rest of the season. It's going to put you into the right mindset to get going for the rest of the season, and depending on where you start this race is depending on where you're going to finish the rest of the season, and I think that is going to be really important.
Absolutely. Then let's take a look at how they lined up after qualifying. It was Jan Grangvist who took pole position for Super Venturi. David Koloksai will line up alongside him with Danny van der Neet in P3. Cosmo Prosciutto P4 for Royal Blue Racing. Then comes Mirko Mancini P5. Victor Ivanov in 6th. Kaz Rietveld in P7 with Sergio Fletcher in 8th. Definitely a close top 10, separated by just under half a second. Then comes Vasilis in the number 14 Netrex Grand Prix. Then comes George in the Netrex Grand Prix 21. So a good day in the office for Netrex with at least 2 inside the top 10. Then comes Ramus in P11. And then here comes Stoyan Barbakov in P13. Stefan Michaels in 14th with the 52 Royal Blue Racing car. Lalu in 15th. Cameron Roger lines up in 17th. A good result for him in the Burst Esports. Then comes Harry Smith 18th. Patrick in 19th with Jackson Went rounding off the top 20. In comes Ferenczi in P21. Frank Hamming for Valley Esports 22. Kevin Moorville 23. Was Lawton Hives in P24. Then comes Fabian Bale with Merguli 25 and 26 respectively. Matthew Tewson in P27. Lorenzo in P28. And then the lone person on the back row, Sophie Jones for Valley Esports 56. But, you know, in the academy race of Valley Esports, Vagapov started at the back of the grid, ended up clawing his way back up to P4 by the end of it. And that was only a 38 lap race. What can Sophie do with 50?
Indeed, and we were just talking before we got on air that the team game, it can be so important on a circuit like Imola, and with so many teams having quite a number of drivers out on the grid, I think we might see that play some sort of effect. Not only sharing of setups, so there's a lot of drivers will be running very similar setup with similar knowledge of the circuit, but there'll also be some that might have some issues earlier on in the race, and they might be able to help later on in the race with some extra use of DRS, slipstream. I was out on the field in the AMA race myself, and that's exactly what I did when I fell a lap down. So just because you're at the back, you've got teammates here who can support you, get your way to the front.
Absolutely, and of course Netrex especially have got quite a few cars on the grid, and they've definitely been one that can boast a lot of success in terms of FSR and rFactor 2 in general. But the formation lap is done and dusted. We've got to wait for our 29 drivers, or well, I think 28 drivers now, to line up on to the grid ahead of 50 laps here for round number 1 of the Formula SimRacing Pro Championship. Everyone inside the top 10, well, in fact, everyone inside the top 12 on the soft compound tyres, not really messing around, not really a lot in terms of diverse strategy. Anyone else really outside the top 10, biting the bullet, staying in the traffic, are going to use the mediums and the hards early on. But we wait for 5 red lights then to illuminate your screens before we get on that dash towards the Tamburello chicane for the first time of 50. Jan Grankvist on pole position, David Koloksai alongside, and now we have 3 lights, 4 lights, 5 red lights to the 2022 FSR Pro Championship, and we're underway in racing. A great start from Mancini from 5th on the grid, already trying to make up some progress, but here comes David Koloksai, a much better start than Jan as they funnel their way through in towards the Tamburello chicane. Is he going to go for the move? The long way round, around the outside of the Tamburello chicane. Grankvist has nothing to say with that one, and Koloksai gets himself into the race lead early on. Prosciutto up into P3, Van der Neet into P4, Rietveld up 2 places into 5th, and Mancini got boxing, I think, at the start, fallen down into P6, but overall a very clean start so far, Richard.
Super clean indeed. I think there's a couple of issues near the back of the field, but the front got away so well, and what an overtake there for Kolevsky to get up into the lead. On the outside, not an easy move indeed.
Absolutely not, and it seems the top 3 starting to sort of stretch their legs a little bit. Prosciutto getting onto the back of Grankvist as they round off this first lap. They've got Van der Neet, who always wants to sort of stay there. It could definitely be a 5-horse race. Remember, DRS range, 0.7 of a second, which, to be fair, still is a pretty sizable gap, and over the course of the race they've got more or less 60 seconds of push to pass, an extra 50 odd horsepower that can really help them in terms of getting through down this pit straight. Especially Grankvist is not going to want to wait around. He wants to get back in front of Koloxai, who just made the most of those tyres, tucked up in the slipstream, using a bit of push to pass maybe as they go down this pit straight for the second time and round off lap 1. Here comes Grankvist to the left hand side. He's going to claim the inside. It didn't work for him on lap 1. Can Koloxai replicate the move he made the lap previous? No, he has to tuck in, and Jan back into the race lead for the time being. But don't forget, it's a long race. Settle in, get your rhythm. Here comes the Netrex car in P10, fighting Nizio for P9. Unfortunately, no move to be fabricated into Villeneuve.
Let's just remind ourselves that overtake there, lap number 1, was not done with DRS, not active obviously at the end of lap number 1 there. So that was pure on the push to pass, and that's showing you the benefit that has throughout the duration of this race. And as you say, about 60 seconds of it over the whole 50 laps. I think that is going to help a lot of drivers move up some positions.
Yeah, absolutely. But again, it's about when you use it. Do you use it at the start, get some track position early? I mean, for Grankvist and Koloxai, not really much to help them because they get through and then their opponent's going to come right back at them the next lap. But maybe if you're like the likes of Lalu or Nizio, trying to work your way up the grid, it could be useful to use it early on, get that track position early. But again, it leaves you vulnerable later on in the race as we round off lap 2 onto lap 3. This is when DRS will be enabled, and Koloxai, Prosciutto, Van der Neat can all utilize that rear wing flap opening in order to get themselves into the mix.
Definitely, as you say, it's going to be so important when you utilise that. And right now, for these drivers at the front, as you say, actually, don't use it right now. You're going to need it at the end. There's a lot of drivers behind you who are quite close. They're going to catch up with that slipstream, with that DRS. But a nice, clean opening couple of laps here. DRS will now be enabled. You have to be 0. Oh, as we've got a little battle going on over here, and that was Fletcher running slightly off the circuit.
Oh, God!
That's someone without a tyre in the background. As we keep on going through
Cameron
Fletcher.
Roger? That's Cameron Roger out on lap 3. A huge crash, but these things happen. It's racing. There was 4 cars trying to fit into the same bit of racetrack, and unfortunately that happens. We're going to try and get a replay to take another look at it. There was a lot going on. Easy to miss. On board with Cameron Roger then gets a great drive. He thinks, oh sweet, 2 positions here, and then gets tagged round, held round, smacked into the barrier, and unfortunately that's his race over. And we're going to get the replay of the POV of the other driver to see if it was just understeer, if it was a mistake, pushing a bit too hard. This is Sergio Fletcher side by side into turn 1, very aggressive, squeezing his way through. You can see jumping over the curb, that forces him off, and then through this left-hander just understeering, and Cam, wrong place, wrong time.
Definitely wrong place, wrong time, and that's the dangers of going wheel-to-wheel racing here at Imola, especially trying to go for an overtake in that first sector. It's extremely tight, and as you can see, Cameron Roger actually an innocent victim in that fight there. Got through, nice opening, but unfortunately, it was too good to be true.
Yeah, that's the thing. You think, hey, whoa, this is great. I'm really lucky here. These guys have just driven themselves off the circuit, but no. As much as you love motorsport, does not love you back, even at the best of times. But looking at the front, Grankvist has really pulled out a good margin at the front. 1.1 seconds, broken clear of that crucial 0.7 of a second to utilize the DRS. So Koloxai could fall into the clutches of Prosciutto and Rietveld behind if he's not careful. Has to keep his head down, doesn't want to get too demotivated. Focus on his race, focus on the strategy that he has at hand, and you can see, well, Prosciutto is into second place, managed to get past David at some point during the lap. Not somewhere you'd conventionally see to get it done midway through. But yeah, Koloxai, it's all about rhythm. Once one gets past, another one wants to eye up a move, and you can see Kaz Rietveld wants to get himself onto the podium through the final couple of corners. He's going to try and make a move for the podium places, and Koloxai, yeah, it's all about rhythm. You see it in karting races. As soon as one goes through, you then lose that rhythm, lose that momentum, and now we can see Kaz looking to the left-hand side. It's the inside line, the dominant line. He's got the overspeed, is well ahead before the corner, but Koloxai is brave around the outside of the Tambrello. He's going to fight this one as best he can, side by side through turns 2 and 3. Bit of contact as they go skating round, and Koloxai has lost the position to Van der Neat as well. So it seems like offense quickly turned into defense, and he's tumbling down the order, losing maybe even 3 places.
Yep, off onto the gravel there. As he loses another one, will it be 4 even? And that's the thing, the moment that you see an opponent ahead of you get overtaken, you know there's a weakness, you know there's an opening to push. And the longer you wait, the harder it's going to go. That's why you see them tumbling down the order so quickly, is because everyone wants to pounce on that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, let's see what happened between Prosciutto and Koloksky into this corner. We just missed the tail end of it. Maybe going a little bit too over the curb, bottomed out the car. That gives him no downforce, no turning at all. The car's completely unstable. Prosciutto just says, sweet, I'm on my way. And luckily, unlike Cameron Roger, actually managed to get out of it. But yeah, David did seem to be a good protagonist. It's not over. You know, we're just about 10% through this race, so still a long way to go. Pit stops are still yet to funnel their way out. He's in P6, still a good position. I think a lot of people further down would probably kill to be this high up, so he's still got a good chance. He can still work his way forward. It's just about composure, keeping his head cool.
Consistency, that's what we were saying earlier. 50 laps is the length of this race, and you've got to be consistent the whole way through. You've got that pit stop, you're going to be able to get onto some fresh tyres at your choosing. This race with the tyres is very open as to when you pit. You can take them quite well, and that was both Koloksky and Ivanov going slightly wide into the gravel on the exit of turn number 6 there. But they've just got to keep it consistent, and they'll be able to recover some of the time back. And if there's an issue up front, they can get it back. Just now, get your head back into it, focus, and drive your strategy.
Exactly. If it can happen to you, it can happen to the people in front of you. So you've got to get your head down. You've got to try your hardest. Never give up, because it's not over until it's over, unless your name is Cameron Roger, because having a wheel does help when it comes to finishing a race. Lap 6 of 50, though. Vandeny is on the back of Kaz Reuteveldt for this podium place. Not going to give it up easy. Mancini as well in the mix. So we've got 3 cars here definitely in the mix for a podium place. Prosciutto and Grankvist have just sort of done their own thing. They've sort of taken off at the front, broken off into their own separate groups, and have sort of clear of everyone else. But Vandeny is on the back of Reuteveldt, Mancini on the back of Vandeny. Just no one quite close enough. A little bit further back though, that's Ivanov on the back of Koloksky, maybe trying to go for the movers. The inside line ahead before the corner. Jobs are good and into P6. So Koloksky again, just not getting off to the best of starts really, and that's going to tarnish his momentum for the rest of this race.
Definitely, his momentum's going to go down, but again, it's a little bit of a gap now down to the driver behind. So I think if he can use this as a way to settle a little bit of a wobble going up into the hairpin there, and then a little bit of a wobble coming out. But you just got to settle in now. He's lost it as far as he needs to lose it. There's a bit of a gap behind. He has a bit of a space to get his mind back onto the track ahead of him, focus it, and try not to make those small errors, because the moment that your head is out of the track and you're not thinking straight, is definitely a circuit like Imola. There's so many corners which you can make a mistake, and you really don't want that in a fragile car like these.
No, not at all. It's very easy for it to all go wrong, especially as you say at a circle like Imola. You look left, you look right. There's either a gravel trap or a high curb or a barrier or a bit of grass. You know, there's a lot of things that can go wrong here, especially even the sausage curbs. Even parts of the circuit want to spit you out. It's a very challenging circuit that adds to the beauty of it. Why it's so good, why it provides such good racing, because it's such a challenge. Here's Vandeny trying to get past Reuteveldt, not quite close enough, just lifting and coasting. Maybe saying to him, let's work together. If we can catch Prosciutto, we can both gain for this. If I fight with you, Mancini gets back into the mix. Ivanov is here. Maybe Koloksky can get back in. The more they fight in these early stages, the more their tyres burn out and the more time they lose. Whereas if they push on, they think long game, they think big, they can definitely gain a little bit more, as we see a little bit of a battle here amongst the midfield.
Well, going back to those top 3 at the front, I'm going to tell you, team game. Did I not say that at the front? It's all about the team game here, I feel, and there are 2 teammates right next to each other, right at the front of the field. You're going to see them working together for sure, trying to catch those leading 2. But this battle in the midfield, a nice train here. There looks like there might be even a look at an overtake, not quite backing out of it, not looking into quite a difficult part of the circuit to go side by side. The only time you can do that is if there's a significant speed difference. You can't do it when you all go in relatively the same speed, otherwise it's going to end badly. So nicely backed out of it, but piling the pressure on as an overtake into the chicane behind, not quite Hanko, having to go over the inside sausage curb, settling himself down, getting back to hunt once again.
Yeah, that was a close call. It's one of those half-hearted moves. You have to either completely commit to it or completely back out, and it's when you second-guess yourself that the mistakes can happen. But a lovely three-car train here for P13 between Kevin Morville, Frank Hamming, and here Michaels just trailing the back end. Sometimes being the third car in the train is better than being the second car, because being third, you can capitalize off the two in front of you because, well, here comes Hamming looking to the outside of Morville, not quite going to be able to go for the move. But Hamming, the unfortunate thing about him, yes, he's got one extra position, but he has to fight so much harder. He has to look forwards and backwards in order to, well, keep Michaels behind, and also to try and get past on Morville as he looks to the outside of Tosa. Is he going to try and set up the switcheroo, go under and over? And you can see Michaels ready to pounce, and even Harry Smith and Hanko looking to find a way through. This is a three-car train, turn 5, and that is what happens. That is the danger of battling a little bit too hard, because more cars get into the mix, and the more you fight, the more positions you could potentially lose.
All of these on the same strategy as well, all of them running on that medium compound tyre. So it's not like one of them's going to be able to jump in early, get across to the mediums and go for a nice undercut. They've all got to run close together for their stint and see where they might end up by the end of it.
Exactly. You don't want to lose too much time to the soft runners, because on this medium tyre, you want to gain as much time, or, well, limit the damage in this first stint, lose as little time as you can to then be able to claw it back in that final stint. Oh, big tank stapper from Frank Hamming, as he somehow managed to save that one. He's going to need a change of underwear at the very least, but in doing so has allowed Michaels to have a run at him to the left-hand side. The fight for P14 rages on. Here comes Michael to the inside of the Tambrello chicane, who's later on the brakes. Hamming, though, manages to keep that momentum on the outside. But yeah, it's a long train in the midfield. All they're doing is holding each other up, and it's just going to tarnish the benefit that we're going to try and get from this strategy.
Definitely being in a train, being in a battle, and definitely the way they're fighting as well. As you say, going into corners, when you go side by side, you have to go slower. It's the only way you're going to make it, and going slower not only means that you're losing out to the leaders, it means the cars behind are catching up, and not only are you then at risk of making your strategy not work, you're at risk of losing out to the guys on the same strategy as you that are just a little bit further behind. And that outside line into turn number 2 is, I feel, going to be the stronger line all night, as it looks like there was a little bit of a look there from Michaels. He backs out of it going into the chicane, really close up to the rear here. But outside line, turn number 2, that's the place you want to be, because on the inside, you've got to slow down too much. You haven't got the momentum going into that corner. So I think we're going to see some overtakes on that outside happening more often than not.
Absolutely, it's that outside momentum. You've got the wider line. Yes, it's a longer distance, and it's very easy for the car on the inside to say, I've made the apex first. It's my track on the outside, mate. You're not coming through. But again, you've got that wide line. You can brake later. You've got more track to use on the outside. You can keep the momentum around the outside. The danger is, though, it quickly tightens up. And those, as I said earlier, those massive sausage curbs on the inside, very easy for you to just bounce over the top of them, and you lose a lot of time. Destabilizes the car. Very easy, could spit you out. And with a train that big, could spit you out into the path of another car, which is a very big danger. So it's always a risk going around the outside, but certainly makes for some really, really good racing, as we saw Coloxide try to do on Grankvist, and did it successfully. Unfortunately, it only lasted a couple laps. Here's Michael finally getting past on Hamming, going down the inside fairly comfortably so, and he certainly does, it seems to have the most pace of all of them. But even in this skirmish, let alone the grand scheme of things, just this small little fight, this small little pocket of cars, just look at how much Kevin Morville has been able to gain, nearly a second, purely because Michael and Frank Hamming have been having a bit of a skirmish, and it really does allow you to just drive away. And maybe that's what Morville was doing, backing Hamming up into the pack of wolves behind, and then being able to shoot off afterwards. But Michaels has had none of that. He has got some sensational pace on those medium tyres, and he's going to be saying, get a move on. I want to be leading this train. I want to be driving forward. I want to make the most of these medium tyres while I can.
I don't know if you want to be leading this train. Ultimately, I think that right now, if you're leading the train, you can make the most of it in terms of getting ahead. But I don't think that Michaels has got enough speed over Morville in the long run pace. I think that sitting behind, definitely with the limited fuel tanks, trying to maybe do a little bit of saving here and there, trying to almost play it as if you're not going to get away from him, sit behind him, maybe force an error here or there, as that what might have been what happened there, as that was very deep from Morville, as it looks like Michaels are going to try to switch back out of the hairpin as they head up towards turn number 8.
Yeah, it's that putting your car in the best position. He's got a good run, but again, you've got to have a better run. Be completely alongside. You cannot be sticking your nose down the inside of such a quick flick to the left, because you'll find yourself getting turned in on, not necessarily intentionally from Morville. He's just taking his line. You stick. Oh no! Was he tapped around, or was that is a big crash in a heavy traction zone? And well, we didn't quite see it from the rear end, but he might have been assisted in that one. But it's very easy to lose because the undulation change. You're going uphill. You can very easily lose the traction. We're going to take another look at it. This is him very closely behind Kevin Morville, and yeah, absolutely not assisted at all. Just going onto the curb on the left. Yeah, just tap it round, because that curb is going to be a little bit less grippy, and the fact he only had one tyre on it means that we're spinning a little bit faster than all the rest of the three, which then destabilizes the car and unfortunately sent him around, which is a shame, because as we said, he had some good pace.
One of the easiest corners to actually lose it on the exit. Not only have you got that curb where you might just clip it with your rear wheel, but also the undulation, the climb is unsettling the car in itself. And in the races that I've seen pre-season, in practice, in testing, all of it, that is the corner that I think is caught most drivers out.
Yeah, just Imola in general is a tricky circuit to navigate. This is the fight still for P3, raging on between Van der Neat, Ruytveld, and Mancini. Is Neat just being more of a mobile chicane, helping Ruytveld maintain that podium for Netrex, because Mancini, Ivanov, they won't hesitate if they can see even a sniff of a chance to get onto the podium, as they're approaching a little bit of traffic, which again isn't ideal. And in fact, they are catching Prosciutto a little bit by working together. That's the thing the midfield lacks. These front guys realise we can all gain a position here. If we fight now, we've got no chance of doing that. But while Prosciutto did keep Grandfix honest, again, that seems to have just fallen off a little bit here. So the gap around about 9/10 of a second, 2/10 more, and Ruytveld will get into the DRS, and that's it. It's like a fishing hook, isn't it? It's just latching onto that rear end and reeling in lap by lap with that DRS, and it is just that strong of a tool that you can really bring yourself into it, even if you are 1/2 of a lap slower.
I hate to bring it up again and sound like a parrot, but maybe look at who's in 3rd, 4th, 6th, and 7th. All of them Netrex drivers. And I think that is going to play a huge part in getting, as you say, a podium in this race. Only one driver separating the 4 teammates here, and I think in the long term race, we're only 14 laps in, that could become quite a difficult place to be sat in that Royal Blue racing car.
Yeah, you're surrounded, aren't you? You've got no help in that Royal Blue. You're all by yourself. You're completely isolated. And that's something that Netrex are going to want to exaggerate and make sure Mancini knows, hey, we've got 4 cars in the mix here. You're by yourself. You are completely alone, and you've got to do it all yourself. We've got cars here. We can work together. Yes, of course, they're driving their own races, but for the whole thing, for the bigger picture, the Netrex cars aren't exactly going to be fighting each other incredibly hard. They're 3rd, 4th, 6th, and 7th. They're really good, strong midfield positions, paying some really good points to both, to all of the cars. So they're not going to really push exactly too hard. And the fact they're catching Prosciutto as well just means they can do it more and work together more, because they're pretty equal on pace. What's the point of fighting now when you've still got 45 laps of 35 laps of the race? There's no point. You've got to save it until the last probably 10 laps-ish.
And I think you're very right there. Even with the teammates, I think you're going to see them working together now. But in that last 5-10 laps of the race, it's the opening round of the season. It's not like one of them's confirmed to get a good position in that championship yet. All of them have a chance, and all of them are going to want to be in that best position to take that chance this year. So yes, they're going to take it easy for the beginning part of the race. They're going to take it easy around each other, try to catch up to those leaders. But go into those 5-10 laps, take away those liveries, take away those team names. I think it's going to become almost every man for himself in trying to get the best position they can today.
Gloves off. It's just absolutely go for it. But again, have that in the back of your mind. Be thinking that, come on, we don't want to get off to the first round. We don't want to tarnish the rest of our season by coming together. It's not particularly the best way to go about things. Yes, we're driving our own races, but we've got to think of the bigger picture. But yeah, we'll see how it pans out. It seems the top, pretty much everyone in terms of the front runners, the top 7, pretty equal in terms of pace. Prosciutto and Grankvist, that gap fluctuating between 3.5 down to 3 seconds, and then between Ruytveld and Prosciutto, as we see clockside, the first into the pit lane. This seems very premature.
Ooh, onto hard tyres as well on the exit. Is that possibly a strategy we didn't even think of? Is that he's feeling confident on those hards? I remember driving around Imola on the hards compared to the mediums, and actually the hards didn't feel that much worse. In fact, I felt a bit more consistent on them than I did the mediums itself. And is that maybe something that Koloskai is thinking? That he's going to feel better on those hard tyres and he's going to be able to have a more consistent run towards the end, especially with the way that he fell down the order at the beginning of the race.
He's got to try something, hasn't he? He hasn't quite got the pace of the top 7, so he's got to try something different. Got to try and find a way through. This is another Netrex car inside the top 10, so definitely a good day in the office for Netrex as well. We've got Prosciutto coming in, so again, it could seem to be the norm in terms of strategy, as we've got the Netrex car all over the back of Lalu to the left-hand side. The move for P9. So again, Netrex's day just getting a little bit better as it's promoted to P8 as they pass Prosciutto. But yeah, it seems like maybe that soft to hard is becoming the norm. In fact, what tyres are Prosciutto's on? These are the soft. So maybe this is Prosciutto done deal 2-stop.
2-stop, not something that I would have thought was going to be a strategy in this race. Definitely with how competitive the ones at the front, because that's a soft tyre that started with onto another set of soft tyres. So because of the tyre rule, he's going to have to stop a second time at some point in this race. But he's got to pull 26 seconds back. And is that going to be enough with fresher tyres over taking an extra pit stop? I don't think so.
The crucial thing is he's come out on these softs. This middle stint, probably the most crucial stint of his race, is to nail this, gain as much time as he can on these fresh softs. He's got clean air to do it. He's got about 6 seconds in front, 8 seconds-ish behind. So he's got some clear air to push and utilize these soft tyres as best he can. But as you say, that's a tough ask. It is a very big, tough ask. How much of these tyres are going to fall off? We saw in the Academy race, even the hards falling off on a relatively short stint. So it can happen. It's all about tyre temperatures, keeping them in a nice window. And still, the two Netrex cars pretty much nose to tail. They're driving around so well. Such good team choreography here, just to work together, stay nose to tail, keep Mancini behind, and push forward with their race. But yeah, Prosciutto, it's an interesting strategy. It'll be interesting to see how that pans out, as thankfully a backmarker moves out of the way very sensibly there.
And I don't think this is new for these teammates. I know that during the last few weeks, from the moment the opening round was announced as Imola to today, these drivers would have been on at least 3-4 times a week, and as teams they would be doing this type of running where they're running nose to tail. As that's slightly off the circuit, there is that a back marker up ahead of them? So but back markers, you've got to be careful here. He's got to get out of the way. He wants to stay as far ahead as possible, but at the same time he needs to jump out of the way, let those faster cars through.
Yeah, you don't want to be the one to ruin a great fight at the front. It's not the best feeling in the world. This is Koloskai on the back of Smith and Ferenczi now fighting for P12. So these hard tyres are coming into their own. It's going to be the outside for Alta for Koloskai if he can keep it there. But Harry Smith just has the drive. The Netrex cars, just as a general rule of thumb, seem to be pretty quick, even this year and last, in a straight line. So that's going to help Harry Smith making overtakes and to defend from the cars behind. But yeah, Koloskai does seem to have some good pace on these hards, and that's the thing. The harder compound, they have a higher operating temperature, so you can push them harder, you can chuck it into corners more, brake later, and not worry about the carcass temperature of the tyre rising too high, the tyre deforming too much, and sliding around. You can push a lot harder, and the tyre wear as well, it's harder rubber. You don't need to worry about saving as much, as Harry Smith looks to the inside of the Tamburello chicane, has to back out on this occasion.
This is the crucial part. It's easy to catch. Can you pass? And definitely with a strategy like this, you don't want to get held up by the drivers who are on those older compounder tyres. You want to be able to benefit the fresh tyres as much as you can, especially on the early point in your stint.
Yeah, absolutely. It's making the most of them while they're fresh before they start to plateau and drop off in terms of pace, because that's when it starts to get difficult. That's when you're sliding around a little bit more. That's when you're dropping off the pace. So it's all about getting off to a good start and trying to keep that rhythm up as best you can, as our race leader is into the pit lane. So Reuteveldt and Van der Neat will both inherit P1 and 2. Of course, they owe us a pit stop. But yeah, Grankfisk, what tyres is he onto? well, he's pulling into his pit stop now, but it'd be interesting to see what he goes to. Will mediums get to the end?
Mediums will go 30 laps definitely in this race, but will it be something they risk? Let's see as he comes out. Another set of softs, so also going for the double stint. And that being said, if he's going for a 2 stint, he has been jumped for what would be effectively the race lead.
This is, yeah, that would be. They're both committing to a 2-stop, Prosciutto and Grankfisk, both. And that's the thing, the undercut is so powerful that Prosciutto had the clear air to run with as, yeah, gets moved through. I think Barbakov just says, you're not in my race today.
Yeah,
and, well, teammates as well. So just realise, you're not in my race. I still have to come into pit lane. I'm not going to slow you down. You have someone charging at you on a similar strategy. You need to get on with your race. But this has just completely blown it. They're on the same strategy, and that undercut has really gone Cosmo's way.
Definitely, and is that something that maybe Grandfisk reacted to? Did he see that it was working, or was this something that was always on the cards? But going, 19 laps on the soft tyres, that means going for a very short stint at the very end on the medium compound tyres, maybe thinking that they're just not worth driving very long and trying to have as little time as possible on them.
That's the thing, you want to spend as much time as possible on the quicker tyre. This is Mancini onto the medium, so going for the more conventional strategy. So we've got we've got a story of 2 strategies here. It's a completely open book in terms of who's going to come out on top. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what the net race cars do. They're going long on these softs, so you'd imagine they're going to try and limit the amount of time in the pit lane and try and conserve the tyres. That's why maybe they're working together, all 4 of them inside the top 4, working together brilliantly. They've it's just been great to see, and well, hopefully for them it can pay off. But overall, in terms of the strategy, it'd be interesting to see how the 2-stop compares to the 1-stop, because of course on this 1-stop you've got the track position, and Imola you can defend as long as you get a good exit off the final corner.
Definitely, I was getting chased down in my race by drivers who were about 3 or 4 seconds a lap faster at some points, and I was able to hold them up for 2 or 3 laps purely because I was able to defend going into the corners, and that's all you need to do. So doing the 2-stop is extremely risky because of being in that traffic, and you've got to work yourself through it. So I think in the short term, yes, you're going to get the speed gain, but you're going to get the speed gain if you've got no traffic. I think with the way that Imola works, it's going to be a tricky race to decide who's actually going to come out ahead.
Of course, and you've just got to try and see what happens. Of course, these guys on the 1-stop, they've got time. They can they need to save their tyres to get to the end. But compared to those on the 2-stops, they have time to. They need to make up some for lost time that they've gained by taking that extra pit stop, by coming through, stopping, and going out again. They need to make up for that time. They need to push lap after lap after lap. They can't afford to conserve. Whereas the likes of these guys who have gone on from soft to mediums, doing that conventional 1-stop. That's a luxury they can have. They can sort of chill a little bit. They can save a little bit of life on those tyres so that if they do eventually get caught, that they can have something to defend with. They're not really, maybe the net race cars sitting behind each other, not using their push to pass because they know they're going to need it later on.
Definitely, and I think that the strategies that are going to be played by everyone is already changed from what we had seen in the Academy Series and even the AMA Series. I think that there's a lot of different strategies being played with this 50-lap race, and it's not something that we would have expected at the beginning. When we were talking, we were thinking softs to mediums or mediums to softs, and that would be about it. This 2-stop has definitely spiced this up, and it was the leaders who chose to do that 2-stop. There's got to be something behind it. If your fastest drivers out there think that it's worth doing.
It must be better, because otherwise they've got everything to lose. They must be confident it's the better strategy, because if they're taking a risk, you're potentially losing a P1 or a P2. You have a lot more to lose than these guys, so they have to be confident. Of course, they'll have put hours or countless laps in terms of practice. This is Mancini versus the Netrex car. Has he managed to get the undercut? They are side by side, just has the overspeed, and Mancini ahead of Rietveld, and in turn is probably going to be ahead of Van der Neet when he eventually comes in as well, and of course Ivanov. So Royal Blue going for the undercut, and so far it's paid off. Though Rietveld is going to have a couple of laps of fresher tyres. They're going to hit the cliff a little bit. Well, they're going to hit the cliff a little bit earlier. For Rietveld, he's going to have a window where his tyres are going to be a lot better than Mancini's.
But I think that we're going to see, actually, that undercut is going to be a very important part of this race, because if the leaders don't make their way back up, or even if they do, it's going to be, at the moment, looking at it, it is going to be Mancini who's going to be at the head of the field. And I think that's going to be so important. As you say, defence is really key here. It's quite easy to defend around here, quite difficult to make your overtake work properly. So getting that undercut, being ahead is going to be key.
Absolutely. It's putting yourself in the best positions. Mancini, he's not the quickest on the track. Granqvist and Prosciutto are absolutely rapid, but he's put himself in that position. He's made his own luck in this sense that if something does happen to the top two, if the two-stop doesn't work out, he's the one at the helm. He's the one leading the way, and all he has to do is keep his wits about him, stay composed. Easier said than done, of course, as Van der Neat comes into the pit lane, and Mancini and Reuvel both comfortably ahead of him. But Reuvel is all over the rear end of the Royal Blue and will be trying to get back in front. But again, these guys on the alternate strategy, they need to work together. They have a threat in Granqvist and Prosciutto that they are charging at them at a rate of knots for this entire race. They need to work together and really only battle for the last final couple of laps if they know they're safe.
I think you're right there. You want to be ahead, and I think Rietveld knows that. He wants to be ahead at this point, but at the same time, the more they fight, not only are they going to slow each other down and put themselves closer to your leaders when they do a second stop, but they're also going to be wearing those tyres down a lot more. And by the time that those nice, fresh mediums are put on by your race leaders in their second stop, they're going to have so much more speed, so much more pace, and no matter how hard you try to defend, surely coming out of those exits of the corners, trying to get the grip in, you're not going to have it over those fresh tyres. And right now, they've got to conserve, as it were, not because they're not going to get to the end of this race. Those tyres are going to be nice and easy to get to the end of this race, but they're going to want the grip.
They're going to want everything they possibly can. Just have a little bit of tyre life. We saw it in the Academy race with Liam Howard. He saved his tyres, conserved them for the entire stint. Then in those final couple of laps, just had a second burst. This is Rietveld on the outside of Mancini into Tamburello. Gets himself back in front despite being undercutted from the Royal Blue. Now puts himself back in the driver's seat. And it was a comfortable move. Didn't lose too much time doing it. It's all in Mancini's hands now. Does he launch the counter-attack? Get back in front? That's going to be the decider and could have massive implications for the rest of the race.
I think he's going to sit behind. He was following for so long in that first stint that he tried to hold it ahead. You could see that he wasn't just giving the position away, but when he knew that Rietveld was coming through, he was allowing it to happen, as this is a little fight going on for the bottom end of the top 10. Actually trying to break into the top 10. Smith sitting in P11, chasing down P10 at the moment, but almost under attack from Hanko.
Yeah, you always set yourself sort of milestones as a driver, of course, in a series like Pro. Getting to the end is a thing of itself. You know, that's something a lot of drivers can't boast today, but you want to get to the checkered flag, as we see Hanko putting some pressure on the Netrex car in towards Variante Alta. It's going to be the long way round, not quite going to be a move around the outside there. But as a driver, you set yourself milestones. Finish the race, then if you do that, if you've got some good pace, go for a top 10. Maybe then go for a top 5, then a podium, then a win is the ultimate goal. And you set yourself these little targets, things that are realistic. It gives you something to aim for, gives you something to aspire to over the course of the season. And for different drivers, it's going to be slightly different. And at the moment, for Harry Smith, he's going to want to make it one more Netrex car inside the top 10.
Definitely, every single position counts, especially at the beginning of the season, where we were saying before, as he tries to defend on the inside, but that's going to be Hanko around the outside, nice and smooth. Looks like they're both going to settle down, and that is going to be down to P number 12 for Smith. A really nice and easy move on the outside for Hanko. We were saying that earlier. It looks like the outside line, as long as you've got the guts to go for it and to hang it on that outside, you can swoop it in almost in front of the car you're overtaking, because by the time they reach the corner, you've already gone through it. And we've seen that a lot in this race. We've seen it a lot in the previous two races as well.
You've got more track on the outside. You can go in deeper. You can brake later. You can use that outside momentum. It's all about getting it stopped, utilizing the trail braking just to nip yourself in front, force the guy on the inside to concede. It's sort of like, if you don't back out, we're going to crash sort of thing. Not necessarily you want to drive that aggressively, but it's that thing. It's forcing your driver to concede, whatever that might be, of course, legally and cleanly, while still having a good race. As we can see, another Netrex car putting some pressure on these two. No love lost between the two Netrex cars, and unfortunately hasn't been able to find a way through. And Harry Smith just not quite able to keep this up for the moment. as we see the other NetRX car side by side with Harry Smith down the pit straight. Seems to be a comfortable move, but again, Harry Smith probably using his push to pass maybe in order to keep level pegging with the DRS and Lally, who's been completely mugged by both of them.
You see that the DRS and very possibly pushed a pass there, but I don't know whether this, at this point, 27 laps into the race, do you just take it? You know the overtake's coming. Do you just allow it to happen and not lose your own speed and not ruin your own strategy? If you fight too hard, are you just starting to make your own race worse as he's falling even more positions? I know Lalu just came out of the pit lane. Looks like he's going up the inside. There's contact as they go over the hill, but it looks like they're both through unscathed out of that as Smith falls down yet another position and has Barbukov right behind.
Yeah, it's all about that thing. You go for a move and then you've got to be careful. You've got to be mindful of the car behind and what they're doing, what their situation is, because Barbukov maybe wants to get some headway, wants to get through, and you've got to be careful. But this is Grandfisk on the back of Prosciutto. This is for position. Both of them on that two-stop strategy. Both of them want to be leading the way to the inside into Villeneuve. Not quite going to be able to work, but again, putting that pressure on. Filling the mirrors, and Prosciutto goes off. That inherits Jan into the race lead fairly comfortably as well, baiting Prosciutto into the mistake, looking to the inside, making Prosciutto go in deep, and that puts him into the driving seat, back into the race lead. But how effective is that two-stop?
That's what we'll see, as it looks like we're going to get a replay of what happened there as we're on board with Prosciutto as he heads into his mistake. Just a little bit wide, understeers, just catches that outside gravel, and that's all it is. You just push a little bit too hard, especially when you've got a car on your rearview mirror. It's very easy to make that mistake and just overdrive a little bit. And we know that Grandfisk has already got that speed. We saw it in the opening stint. But what will happen when they come in for that second stop? They're going to drop it probably to about P7 on the field when they come in for that second stop. Will they be able to work their way back up to the front?
That's the thing, yeah, but you can't let Jan out of your sights. Prosciutto put himself into that position thanks to a strategical call, which he might be able to make again, but he needs to put up a much harder fight. This is Ivanov on the back of Mancini, down the pit straight. Just look at that closing speed, sails past. He's not even there. The relative speed between the two, the NetRX car sails past. Easy to like it inside the top 5. So it's a good day, turned better for the NetRX cars.
Definitely, they are absolutely flying here at Imola, and they are showing that they are going to be top runners throughout the entire season right now. And they're not too far behind your effective race leaders, even though they still need to come in for a second stop. So I don't think that we're going to see this two-stop play out, even with the length that we've still got, with these drivers pushing their mediums most likely to the end. I'm going to say that the two leaders, they're not going to be able to make this two-stop work. I think the delta difference isn't as high as they're probably hoping.
Yeah, no, and if that is the case, it's a 1-2-3 for NetRX at the moment. Rival is right there, ready to pick up the pieces, and yeah, as you say, the gap is only 7 seconds between Rival and Grandfisk. It's nothing in the grand scheme of things, considering they need to gain 26 seconds. They need, and they're already probably at least a third of the way through their stint at the moment, maybe even towards halfway through their stint. They haven't gained as much as they need to, and with how close the midfield is, they could easily fall into the clutches of the likes. Well, at the moment, they're going to come out just behind P7, which is not the best position to be in.
I think this is just showing you the benefits of the, as you said earlier, not the lower divisions, but having the stepping stones up here. We could see from last year that Prosciutto already, as we look, maybe an overtake in the background there, not quite from the RSR driver, a little bit of a weave going up towards turn number 2, having a back out for now, but it's a nice little train forming at the bottom end of your top 10. But yeah, going back to up to your leader, Prosciutto, last year he finished second in that Academy Series, and he's been promoted to the Pro Series, and he's running second now. As we look for yet another overtake, Lalu looking to the inside of Kalaskai here, and it's going to be a nice move.
Yeah, very nice move. One into a corner we didn't particularly expect one to be made, but he just had the drive off Tosa. Got the drive, got up the inside, and Kolotsky around the outside of such a fast corner. Very difficult because Lalu's car it doesn't matter how much respect he's got for Clock Sky, hopefully a lot, to give us some nice clean racing, but naturally the car is going to want to drive out. It's a fast corner. He's carrying so much speed in, and on a compromised line, on a tighter angle, the car naturally drifts to the outside. And coming off there, it's not the widest track in the world. So it was good that Clock Sky backed out, decided to live and fight another day, and hopefully can stick with them. The best thing to do, if a car's quicker, sit in their DRS. If they're catching the cars in front, sit with them, make them do all the hard work for you.
Definitely, you've got to use the best that you can whilst you're out on the circuit. That's what it is to be a racing driver, is to take the most out of your machine, the track that you're on, and what's provided to you, whatever that may be. And right now, for a lot of these drivers, it could be an extra couple of positions, with some drivers maybe making the wrong call. But we're in the commentary box for a reason. We're not in this Pro Series race. We don't have that knowledge that these drivers have, the laps that they have in. I certainly have my countless laps on the track, but nothing compared to what these guys will be doing. They know what's going to work for them. But is it what's going to work across the whole race? We'll wait to find out.
Yeah, and again, it differs from team, as Prosciutto is into the pit lane, so once again going for this undercut. He come in a couple of laps early from Jan, going for this undercut. He's going to be on slightly older tyres, but again, if he can get the undercut to stick, then again, he has another chance of defending. He can't make the same mistake into Villeneuve again, because then his entire chance is gone. He went wide, the gravel, lost his momentum, dirty tyres as well, which again just made him lose too much time, lost the DRS of Jan and just couldn't stick with him at all. So Prosciutto, if this two-stopper works and he wants to win this race, needs to try something different to Jan, because on pure pace, Cranksfix has got it.
Definitely, and I think that was a decision made on the fly, because how early he just pit compared to his first stop onto the softs, I think he's probably done about 4 or 5 laps shorter in that stint, and I think that is to try to push for an even bigger undercut that he managed in that first stop, and just try to get the space between himself and Grandfist when he comes into pit.
Yeah, and at the moment it's just about 10 seconds off Ampazidis, so it's a big ask in terms of getting through, and then it's one thing to catch, another thing to pass, and then we've seen at Imola, it's another thing to stay ahead as well. It doesn't matter how good your tyres are, how quick you are, a person can sit in the DRS at 0.7, they can stay with you, even if they're 1, 2, 3 tenths of a lap slower, they can stay with you utilising that DRS, they're push to pass as well. So for Prosciutto and for Granquist, they haven't helped themselves a lot, but being the leaders, as I said earlier on, they have more to lose. They wouldn't do this if they weren't completely confident it would work, but as the laps tick down, that when they come in, they're going to have less time in order to claw this time back as well, and with that, again, having to get through. So the further into this race they go, the less likely it seems it's going to work for them.
I would agree with you there, and by the looks of it, the teammates are running very similar strategies in terms of whatever team you're with, and I think that's got to have been what they've come up with, that ultimately these drivers would have run by now at least 5 or 6 race simulations, running all different types of strategies, and they look at Delta. That's what you look at when you think about strategy. What Delta improvement do we have running this strategy over the different one? And they must have seen such a good Delta to choose to run it in comparison to everyone else's. But those Delta performances are based on no traffic, and it's depending on where you come out on track, how quickly you're able to get past the drivers in front of you, and really will that Delta difference reflect when it comes to the race. Right now, I'm thinking it's not going to. There's 25 seconds for the Royal Blue Racing driver to get to, well, I say 25, actually, it's more about 13 if you look at the gap between first and second position. But is 13 too much? That's quite a big difference to not only catch, but also overtake 5 drivers if you want to get that lead.
Yeah, of course, and the on-paper strategy, as you say, it's completely different. Racing, there's a million different variables that go on over the course of a race, if not more. Maybe that's a bit generous, in fact. The on-paper strategy doesn't account for traffic, doesn't account for track position, doesn't account for track conditions. It's an on-paper, it's an ideal world, which we all know never comes about in racing. You never have a perfect race from start to finish. Something goes wrong somewhere in between. So that on-paper strategy, yes, it looks good, but in practicality, in reality, is it going to be the better strategy? But Kolokski, again, another driver we saw take an unorthodox strategy. He's taken a completely different route to anyone else inside the top 10, sort of making it work. He's on the back of Wack at the moment on the medium tyres. So despite being on these hard tyres since, I think, around lap 16, I think he came into the pit lane, these tyres are getting on, still showing some good pace, but again, he made a move for the race lead into turn 1. Is P9 really what he wants to be fighting for?
Indeed, it was 15 laps he ran on that soft tyre at the start of the race, so he has pushed quite hard on these hards. He had that speed at the beginning when he first went onto the fresh tyres. He's got the ability not to do that second stop, but right now, I think with drivers on the mediums behind him, even drivers who obviously started on the mediums and have now gone on to soft compound tyres for the remainder of the race, they're going to have so much speed over worn hard tyres that is it actually going to be beneficial to stay out, or do you pit again?
Yeah, exactly. It's on the fly thinking. He obviously saw that the hards were a quicker strategy, but again, in reality, is it the better strategy? You have to think on the fly and make the best decisions. And, split-second decisions, you're not always going to make the right decision. Maybe even like 8 times out of 10, you're not going to make the right decision. But when you do, definitely does help us. Jan comes into the pit lane a lot later than Prosciutto, so this is going to be a direct fight between himself and Cosmo. 18 seconds was the gap as he entered the pit lane, which I think comfortably gives it to Prosciutto, but we'll have to see. And of course, Grindfist is going to have much fresher tyres, but he's only got 15 laps in order to get through, catch up and then get through. But if anyone can, he can. He's been phenomenal.
He has. He's got definitely the most speed out of anyone here, and it looks like, here you go, there goes Prosciutto. He is going to take on the exit. Oh, is he? Oh, that was close. That is extremely close. Much closer than we thought it was going to be on the exit there as Grandfist falls in line in P number 7. Not the undercut I think Prosciutto was hoping for. That is only about 0.6 of a second between them.
And of course, Grindfist still has the benefit of the drag reduction system, the opening in the rear wing in order to help propel him down that pit straight, and of course that run down and towards the final couple of corners as well. So yeah, but again, they're on the two-stop strategy. They need to work together. They've got 6 cars to the top 5 at a load, and then they've got another 3 and a bit seconds. And then it's very tricky. They need to work together. Yes, they need to be fighting as hard as they can for if it could be P1 and 2, but do they want to be fighting for 6th and 7th? No, they're the 2 quickest cars on track. They want to be working together. They want to push forward. And with only 15, not even that, 14 and a half laps to go, they're going to need at least, just under a second a lap to make this work.
I'm going to say they're going to have to work together. They cannot fight if they want this strategy to work, because they've got to catch up. And what they've got to do is when they overtake, I think Prosciutto, he's got to find a good place to overtake, as it looks like they are going to go for a move here as Grandfist goes to the right hand side and easily gets that position and easily moves up to P number 6, but no fight. Neither of them lost time there, which is going to be crucial for this fight to get back up into the lead.
Yeah, it's about Prosciutto maybe sticking on the rear end of Grindfist, using him to carve his way back through inside the top 5, because Jan has got some sensational pace. He's very consistent, really hasn't put a foot wrong, whereas Prosciutto made some little mistakes here and there, not quite on the pace, but as I said earlier, if you can sit in the DRS, you can gain quite a lot. Jan's going to do all the hard work for them. They've got 4 seconds to get themselves inside that top 5. It's going to be a tough ask, certainly doable, but just look at Jan. He doesn't look back, got through and just hasn't looked back. He completely left Prosciutto in the dust.
They've got to gain a second on average every single lap to get back this lead, and that is a big ask, even with fresh tyres. And I think it's going to be fine catching up and getting onto the back end of P number 5, but it's going to be getting through quickly, cleanly, and being able to continue your push, keeping that average of 1 second per lap.
Absolutely, it's all about averages, it's all about consistency, claw it back, and of course they're going to have the fresh tyres. Jan definitely knows how to make an overtake stick, but yeah, the Netrex cars, they're going to make a massive wall. They're going to be the biggest mobile chicane possible. That is even if Jan catches up to them, because we've got Reichwald, Van der Neet and Ivanov all inside the top 3. they're going to want to keep that top three. They're going to want to protect each other. They're going to want to form some barrier, keeping Jan behind for as long as possible. We're not I don't think we're going to see the top three fight unless it's clear that Jan has fallen off with a couple of laps to go, because of course Van der Neat wants to get past rFactor. He wants to win this race. He doesn't want to sit behind second fiddle to his teammates. Same with Ivanov. But if they've got to think of the bigger picture, take second place, because if they fight, Jan is going to close up a lot easier than they would have liked. And already, Grangsfist already onto the back of this Netrex car for P5. Just look at that, just slightly you can just about see him, and a couple of seconds is pretty much nothing, and he is closing this gap a lot quicker than we expected.
Much quicker than we expected, but remember that. Oh, what's slowing down there? It's back marker. It's okay. I thought that was suddenly P5 slowing off to the side. It's okay. So the leaders, though, all the top three, they've got that teammate in P5 defending for them. That actually, whether Jan can catch up is one thing. How hard is that Netrex driver going to fight to try and help his teammate? Because he hasn't got the podium. I think we can clearly see that now. 10 seconds off of the podium positions. He knows that P5 is probably the best he's going to sit in today. Is he going to push his defense really hard to allow his teammates to hold up that podium? And as you say, that podium's not going to fight. Not for the next 6-7 laps at least. Until we get into the final, I'd say 3 or 4 laps, and the gap back to Jan is at least 7 or 8 seconds, they're not going to fight. Any smaller than that, I think they're going to stay in line all the way to the end and try to get a 1, 2, 3 in the opening round.
Yeah, Ampaditis is going to be, well, yeah, as you say, he's got to protect his teammates, similar to like Fernando Alonso in the 2021 Hungarian Grand Prix, keeping Lewis behind for as long as possible, trying to protect the team, his teammates in front for as long as possible, stop the offensive charge from Jan for as long as possible. But you have to beg the question, already going defensive, so you can see he will put up a fight. How much push to pass has he got left? Park it on the exit, make that car as wide as possible, force Jan into some little errors here and there, but surely Jan, straight line speed, his push to pass, if he's got any left, is going to allow him. You can see Ampaditis already to the left hand side to try and defend, but the overspeed in this Super Venturi to sail past, maybe so though. The Netrex is still on the inside, but the Super Venturi brakes late enough and around the outside comfortably into the top 5. He tried, but again just couldn't quite get it. And again, doesn't mean he's a bad defender. Jan is just a league above.
And I think that corner we've been seeing overtakes on the outside so much. The DRS, the push to pass, quite easy to get the overspeed, but it was no means a weak defence. You could see all the way up to the corner, tried to stay side by side, and the very end had to back out of it. It's just too tight to take that line with a car on your outside.
Yeah, and it's very easy to just lock up the fronts and go into the side of him. And you don't want that. You don't want to ruin your race that quickly. And yeah, Ampaditis tried, but again, is a shame. And now Jan has got the monumental task of both, well, just to catch Mancini. You can see just that royal blue, that little speck in the distance now going down the crest towards the final couple of corners. I didn't actually realise how blind that was. Mancini completely went out of sight for a moment. Didn't quite realise how steep the undulation change was. But Mancini, again, he's not really going to be able to catch Ivanov. He's going to want to try and consolidate a P4. Might be able to put up more of a fight than Ampaditis did. We don't know. But Jan, he needs to get cracking on. He's into the final 5th of this race, 41 of 50. If he wants a chance at even a podium, he needs to get moving.
I think he's already got a move on. Look at those averages. I'm coming back to them. He's got 10 laps to go. He's got 10 seconds to gain. He's keeping up at 1 second per lap. And obviously, that will mean that he's going to catch those leading 3 within the last couple of laps of the race. It's going to be difficult for him to win, but he is catching at that average speed he needs to.
Yeah, absolutely. On the last lap, an 18.7 for Kaz, an 18.1 for Jan, but of course that was with the overtake, so slightly slower. Needs to get a crack, 2 tenths to the first sector on this lap alone. So yeah, definitely getting a move on. Just needs to maximize every sector possible, every corner possible, use every opportunity he can to get through and make quick work of Mancini, most importantly. The swiftness he can get through on the 2 cars of Ampaditis and Mancini. He got through the Netrex car fairly quickly. Will he make his light work of Mancini? That could be the deciding factor of this race. And of course, lap traffic, not much in the way of Jan at the moment. It seems pretty clear running everyone who's 4 position just in front of him. So lap traffic not going to make a factor, but Mancini certainly can.
I think that he was lucky where he caught up to the next Rex, or going up towards the back end of the track, the double DRS zone. He didn't have to wait for very long. If he's going to catch up to Mancini very early on into this lap, within the next couple of corners even, he's going to find it very difficult to get past him quickly if he hasn't got that overspeed until you get around to the back end of the track, whether you the first or the second DRS zone. It's up to him where he goes to the move, but the rest of the track is going to, I think, make it quite difficult if he's going to catch up there.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all about timing. It's all about momentum. He's got some very good pace. Very, very good pace. It's undeniable. But you've got to keep that pace up. You've got to keep the rhythm up, the momentum up around a circuit like Imola especially. And if he gets caught up behind Mancini, I think he's actually timed this pretty well in order to get through. He's got the DRS down to the final two corners, similar to how he got past Ambidaitis, and now Prosciutto managed to get through as well. But yeah, he's caught this up brilliantly. It's all about timing, all about momentum. He needs to clear. He needs to clear him very quickly.
Definitely perfect timing indeed. I think he's going to stick behind going into the final two corners of the lap, and he's going to use the DRS. If he's got any more push to pass left, he'll probably be using a little bit of that on the exit just to give himself a bit of a boost as he comes through. Yeah, he's definitely got push to pass active. You can see that by the speed he got out of the corner before the DRS zone was even active. Goes to the left-hand side, but already ahead way before the breaking point.
Heads down, push for Jan at this point. He needs to get a move on. 7.9 seconds to Kaz, leading the way at the moment. He's got, what is that, 8 laps, 7.5-ish laps, 7 2/3 lap, give or take, in order to make this stick. So literally needs a second a lap to get this at least a podium. He's got around about 6 seconds to Ivanov in order to close up, who, again, will put up as much of a fight as possible. But it's all about timing. Jan, similar to the last two he's just overtaken, if he can time it well, if he can use the DRS and whatever push to pass he's got left to get through, not much of a defense you can make down a straight line. If the car on the outside of you trying to get through is that much quicker, you really have nothing to say.
Definitely, and he's been, very lucky, I say. But at the same time, is it skill? As he purposely backed out at different points on the circuit to make sure that he wasn't in the dirty area, he wasn't right up the rear end of somebody, ready for the end of the lap. I mean, I definitely could say skill is playing a massive hand with when he's catching up to the exact traffic. And with 5 seconds of clear air, take away the back markers, up to the next driver, he can just push. 6 laps to go. They are doing a fantastic job right now of making the most of these medium tyres. And throwing it back to Kalaskai in P13, he did do a second stop, getting off those hard tyres. He's only lost a few positions down to P13 now on the mediums for the rest of the race.
So yeah, he did come in again, as you said, but yeah, the three NetRex guys, Roval, Vandeny and Ivanov, doing a fantastic job, a formidable job, and you really can't fault them. They did a different strategy. Jan tried something else. It will be very fine line between the two strategies, literally nothing in it, but Jan is pushing everything he can. He's left Cosmo Prosciutto in the dust behind. So if anyone can make this two-stop strategy work, it was going to be Jan, because I don't think Cosmo quite had the pace or the consistency. A fantastic driver, but again, I think just the wrong strategy for them, because the NetRex guys couldn't match Jan in qualifying, couldn't match him in terms of race pace, but they've put themselves in this position. They've got the track position and a little bit of a buffer in these latter stages of the race, that because Jan has had to blitz through the field, well, some of the field, the front runners, Mancini, Ambizaitis, etc., he's worn down his tyres, he's used a bit of push to pass, he's a little bit more tired, and they've had this pretty much 2 stints of just chilling out in front, doing their own thing, working together. Vandeny has not left the rear end of Reuvel, neither has Ivanov. They've been so closely matched on pace that they've just made this work. They haven't fought, they've done everything right. Very easy for one of them to get selfish, start fighting with their teammate, and if they did that early on, could have cost them the time that Jan needs to make up now.
And it's an interesting strategy call to make, because it couldn't have been high tyre wear, it couldn't have been that they needed to pit because their softs were wearing too much, because they did go quite a distance on them, and they've gone longer on the softs than they are going on the mediums by the end of this race. And I think that shows you that the tyre wear issue was not what they were thinking about. It was what's faster. And yes, as we were saying earlier, what's faster on paper, it hasn't quite played off yet, but we've still got 5 and maybe a quarter, maybe a third more laps left to go for Jan. Can he pull it up? And as you say, those 3 leaders, they've been all over each other for the entire duration of this race, and I don't think they're going to let up.
Of course, we haven't seen much in the way of on-track action between these guys, but the strategy game has been drama in of itself. Which one's going to come out on top? It's a tale of two strategies. The one-stop, the two-stop. Jan has been pushing that car so hard, and it's made for such an interesting race because we're sat here biting our nails wondering if he's going to be able to catch it. He's pushing lap after lap after lap, trying to claw back some time, and now Ivanov has joined that 3-car train. They're going to be forming an even bigger one because Ivanov now gets the DRS from Vandeney, which is going to help him defend from Jan if he does catch up. That is probably, I think, maybe the top two, Vandeney and rFactor, maybe slow down a little bit. Let Ivanov get inside the DRS in order to help him defend from Jan and form a 3-car train. And again, like at the start of the race, isolate Jan in that Super Venturi. He's all by himself, and they want to let him know that.
Definitely. They'll be on, radio with each other. They'll be able to talk to each other, let each other know what's going on. And I think you're right. They've definitely slowed down a touch to allow Ivanov to get into that DRS train as well. And ultimately, that is going to help them in the long run. It's surely also going to help them secure that top 3, because when Zhang catches up to them, it's no longer going to have the benefit of having the DRS and the push to pass like he had with his last couple of overtakes. That DRS is almost nullified, as it were, when they've all 3 of them will have DRS from 2nd down to 4th. When Zhang catches up, DRS is almost taken out of the equation at that point. It's about how much push to pass do they have left in that machine, and are they going to be able to use it effectively?
Exactly. Their management. They've done a great job at managing things. They haven't really had an excuse to use push to pass. They haven't tried to fight each other. They haven't really had to get past anyone. While rFactor had to get past a little bit earlier on, I think it was Mancini, who did a similar strategy and had to pass him after the undercut. But other than that, they've been by themselves. They haven't needed to use the push to pass. So they're probably going to have a lot more in the tank than Jan has towards this later stage. And while, yes, his drive has been formidable, I think the NetRex cars have enough in their tank just to hold back the attack, the offensive. And I think time is going to be Jan's biggest enemy. Give him an extra 5 laps, he'd blitz past them, easy peasy. But because the laps are dwindling down, his opportunities are dwindling down, it's going to make it that much more difficult because he needs to make some moves in haste. He needs to get past Ivanov, who's not going to make it easy for him. He needs to get past Vandeney, again, not going to make it easy for him. And then needs to get past rFactor, who definitely won't be making it easy for him because that's for the lead of the race.
3 laps to go, 3 seconds. That averages continue coming down. But at this point, on the final lap of the race, he's going to be at the very back of that field. He's not going to be able to get 3 overtakes done in 1 lap. There's no way. He can fight for a podium position, but I'm going to call it now. The lead is ruled out for him. He cannot get it.
Interestingly enough, if he does get himself into P3, it'll be the 2nd race in a row between Academy and Pro. The person that started on pole finished P3 at the end of it. So hopefully Jan can break that curse for him, and hopefully it's just a bit of a coincidence. But yeah, he's pushing so hard. He's got, just shy of 2 seconds now to Ivanov. Once he's in that 7/10, the gap will come down a little bit quicker, but he can see them. That's the important thing. For the last couple of laps, he hasn't had sight of them, but now he can see them. He can see his targets. Bit of a squirm as well, pushing that much harder, pushing his tires to the absolute limit. But now he's got sight of his target, and that's that instinct that comes in. You can see them. You push harder. You find something else deep inside of you in order to try and do well in this race.
How much does a race driver want to win? That's the question for the 2 NetRex Grand Prix drivers behind your leader. Are they going to go, fine, we're not going to win it, let's get a triple podium? Or are they going to say, it's 2 laps to go, I'm going for it, I want to win this race, let's kick this season off strong for myself? It's going to be a question of how much do they want to win? And right now, it looks like they're going the team game, which is going to be strong for them throughout the whole season. Surely they're itching. They don't want to be in that 2nd. They don't want to be in that 3rd. They want to be the driver taking home the checker flag.
I always think to Monza in 2021, where Lando Norris had to play second fiddle to Daniel Ricciardo, had to preserve the 1 and 2 for the team. It was a massive thing for them. The only team to do it for the entire season. Lando very easily could have said, hang on, I want to win this race. I want to get through. I'm going to push a little bit harder. But in doing so would compromise the team as a whole. And that's not the game you want to be playing. You want to be a team player. Yes, you're driving for yourself. You're driving for your own career. But either way, you're getting a podium. And to preserve the team, it's a team sport. You form relationships. You form friendships with your teammates. And you want each other to do well. You're each other's biggest fans. So to see each other doing well, you want to preserve that. Yes, that selfish bit of it comes into it. But when they've got Jan breathing down their neck, you can say, Ivanov is going to be looking in his mirror and seeing them. All three of them are going to be looking in their mirror and seeing them as we go on to the final lap of this race. Jan is just no, he's not going to get DRS for this last lap. He's got to do it all himself. I think just because of time, Jan's going to have to miss out.
Yes, but it looks like there's going to be an attempt at an overtake for the lead, though, possibly. It looked like Van der Neat looked like he tried and looked out a little bit going up towards turn number 1. I think that it might be taken over here. Yes, just saying, getting a 1-2-3 in the opening round of the season is going to be amazing for the team and amazing for the drivers. But are they going to push? Not going through the rest of the lap, but on that final straight, how much push to pass? Who's conserved the most? Who's going to be able to push up towards out of that final corner? Because right now it looks like we're going to follow nice in suit. But how much do they want it? Are they going to push just that little bit harder? Maybe risk it. As you say, it's a team game. They've got this 1-2-3. As Grandfist goes off as he pushes a bit too hard, trying to look for that podium. But it looks like he's going to have to suck up to a P4. Oh, is he?
All over the back of Ivanov. He's going to have the DRS Izzy down this back straight. I don't think... Oh, no, that rear wing is open. And again, I think it's just going to be down to time running out of it. Ivanov is under a world of pressure for these final couple of corners. All Rietveld, all Van der Neat, all Ivanov have to do is negotiate this. And on the run to the line, it's going to be a Netrex 1-2-3. Granks is getting it all sorts wrong off the final corner. He's spun round. So it's going to be a Netrex 1-2-3 for the first round for the 2022 FSR Pro Series. Rietveld takes the win from his teammate Van der Neat and Ivanov. And Jan tried so hard, tried everything he possibly could, used everything in his armory as Prosciutto and Mancini have a bloody drag race to the line. Prosciutto gets it on the line, just about manages to scrape a top 5 there. That final lap was so tense. That was a final lap that was built up lap after lap after lap for the entirety of pretty much that entire race. As soon as we know Jan and Cosmo were on that alternate strategy, but hats off to the NetRace guys. They worked together so well. None of them put a foot wrong. Ivanov, despite the pressure from Jan, didn't bottle it, and instead it was Jan that succumbed to the pressure.
An amazing race indeed throughout the whole. And this is Jan's mistake on the final lap. He got really close. You can see the wobble in front of him from Ivanov, but he got a little bit too much curbing, bit too much power. I think push to pass was already active coming out of that corner that unsettled that rear end, gave it a bit more power. He was fortunate, he was able to get it back onto the track really quick, no damage, that he was able to hold on to P4, because that could have been a really sad way to end the race.
Yeah, absolutely. But again, he saw an opportunity. He's a racing driver. He's going to try and take it. But yeah, very well done to him. But again, very, very well done to the NetRace cars. I was talking to Kaz the other day and I was like, I'm on pro. It's my first time on pro. You better do me proud. And he certainly has. The NetRace guys 1, 2, and 3. Hats off to them, because yeah, that is the best way to start the season with a 1, 2, 3. They're going to carry this momentum forward throughout the season. It's disappointing for Jan. Of course, he got pole position, definitely had some pace in that Venturi car, but it's, yeah, pushing a little bit too hard in the end. Saw an opportunity, tried to seize it. If it worked, he'd have been a hero. And look at them in formation, just trying to celebrate. That's lovely to see. And well, Kaz giving us, well, an attempt at a donut. And here he goes. He's going to go for the full thing. Yeah, you can't blame him. He's very deservedly so.
Had a little bit of an hour going into that donut. Maybe not too much practice being out in the lead, but he's doing a great job with all of them doing some nice donuts along the main straight. But yeah, as you said, Jan was pushing as hard as he possibly could. It was going to be win or lose at that point, and he pushed as hard as he could. And it didn't cost him anything at the end of it. He still finished P4. So a great opportunity, as maybe they need to do a little bit of practicing on their donuts, actually, for the rest of the season, because a few rear wings being kicked up around the track.
Well, if today's anything to go by with a 1, 2, 3, they're going to have plenty of practice with their donuts. It was Kaz Rietveld P1 with Danny Van der Neat in second place. Victor Ivanov for NetRace Grand Prix rounding off the podium, and Jan Grankvist just missing out in P4. Then comes Cosmo Prosciutto, again, similar to Jan, tried the alternate strategy, just didn't quite work out for him, but still a top 5, very, very good result for him. Only just got it ahead of Mirko Mancini, though, on a run to the line. Then comes Vasilius Ambeditis in P7, then comes Lalu in 8th. Thomas Wack in P9, Rostoyan Barbakov in P10. That is how they rack up in the top 10, with Patrick Hanko P11. David Koloksky, after a disappointing first stint, comes home only 12th. George in the 21 NetRex Grand Prix in 13th. Harry Smith for the 82 NetRex Grand Prix in 14th. They certainly are a formidable force in this Pro Series. Then comes Rengski in the Ground Effect SimRacing team in 15th. Sophie Jones, a great drive from last, 29th on the grid to 16th. That's 13 places gained over the course of 50 laps. Well, 49 laps as she was lapped. But yeah, great drive. Matthew Tucson in P17. Then comes Nizio in P18. Frank Hamming in 19th. Fabian Barley in P20. Then comes the DNFs. Pretty hefty list, with Martin Merguli in 21st, Sergio Fletcher, Cuitus in P23, Hives, Michaels, Wendt, Roger, all DNF, with Kevin Morville a very strange DQ. Unfortunately, I think he had contact with Barley and then his game crashed, which resulted in a DQ. But whilst our action concludes for today, do not miss the World Championship in just a moment over on the VCO eSports YouTube channel and Twitch channel as well. Again, a massive thank you to them for sponsoring FSR, and of course to Masita Esports for returning this season. For myself and Richard, it's been a pleasure commentating, and I cannot wait to see how this season unfolds. Join us in 2 weeks' time on the 13th of March for round number 2. Hopefully we can have just as an exciting and enthralling race as we had today. For myself and Richard, I've been Zach Sweeney. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.